Hi friends, I'm Ashley and welcome back to my channel and to the start of another reading vlog. So in today's video, I am going to be reading Alchemy of Secrets by Stephanie Garber. So Stephanie Garber is the author of two of my favorite YA fantasy books, Once Upon a Broken Heart, which I have my whole Once Upon a Broken Heart shelf here, and then also the Caraval series, which I have over here. So, needless to say, when I found out that she was coming out with a new book, I was super excited. But then I found out it was her adult debut, which is fine, but that it wasn't strictly like a fantasy book. So this book has fantasy elements in it, but I think it's like more of a mystery, more of a thriller, and it deals with like Hollywood and the devil. And when I first heard what it was about, I was kind of like, I'm not sure if I want to read it because that isn't really what I usually read, and I know my reading taste well. I prefer whimsical fantasy that's like in a completely fantasy world. But then she posted quotes from this book on her Instagram and also fan art, and that made me interested in picking it up. And since then, I saw a review of this book that said, if you loved Caraval and Once Upon a Broken Heart and you're worried about liking this because it sounds so different, don't be, because you'll love this just as much. So I'm kind of trusting that comment. And also, if nothing else, I love Stephanie Garber's writing, so I know I'm gonna like the writing in here at least. Also, this is the Target edition of the book. So I'm actually not a huge fan of the US cover, and I was thinking of possibly getting the UK edition because I like that cover better. But then I saw that there was a Target edition with pink sprayed edges and the girl's outfit being pink on the front, and pink is my favorite color, so I was like, okay, I'll buy this one. And on the back of this, there is some praise for the book, and the one that really caught my attention is that Entertainment Weekly says that this is the Hunger Games meets the Night Circus. I'm like, what does that even mean? I love the Hunger Games and I love the Night Circus, but the two of them together? So I'm like, that's intriguing. And then also Cassandra Clare on here said that this is a sugar-crusted, poison-spiked romp. And that's such an interesting description and imagery. And I did just look at the inside flap, and that now has me even more intrigued about the story. So the inside flap says that our main character is Holland, and that she has always believed that magic is real. And she ends up tracking down a local legend named the Watchman, who can supposedly tell you when you're going to die. And he tells her that she is going to die at midnight tomorrow, unless she finds an ancient object called the Alchemical Heart. Already, that premise right there sounds so Stephanie Garber. And then she ends up meeting a stranger who says that he was sent there by her sister to protect her. I don't know about that. And so they start trying to find this alchemical heart. But as she goes deeper into this magical world that's in Los Angeles, she begins to question who she can trust. Can she really trust this new stranger? Was he really sent there by her sister? So yeah, I'm now super intrigued to read this. So I'm gonna go start this, and I'll be back with my first thoughts once I've read some. So I just read, it's not chapter 1, it's not called a prologue, but something that the book just calls Folklore 517. It's very interesting because this little section that I just read is told in second person, and that reminds me of the Night Circus, because the Night Circus has those different viewpoints going on in it, and one of the viewpoints is second person. So I'm seeing that comparison to the Night Circus already a little bit. So I just finished chapter 1, and I'm already getting Caraval and Once Upon a Broken Heart vibes, even though this book isn't in a fantasy world. It's in the modern everyday world, I think in Los Angeles. But our main character so far, just from this first chapter, is reminding me of Evangeline from Once Upon a Broken Heart, because our main character in here, Holland, she believes in magic and stuff. and seems like kind of a dreamer, and that's how like Evangeline was. And also they go to a clock shop in this first chapter that seems kind of magical. And in Caraval, there is also a magical clock shop. So far this just feels very Stephanie Garber. And also the writing so far is totally Stephanie Garber's style, like that lyrical style that she has. And chapter 2, the first line of chapter 2 is the perfect example of that. It reads, "The next morning arrived slowly, reluctant to perform a job it had grown tired of doing." Hi, so I am here with a reading update, and it has been a little bit since I filmed the intro for this because we are now in November. It's now Tuesday, November 4th, which is crazy. October is over. Like, how did that happen? And I was planning to read more of this and do an update last Thursday, which was the day before Halloween, which would have been like the perfect time to like read more of this because this book actually takes place around Halloween. And so I had plans to do that, but then Thursday I had to take care of some car stuff that ended up taking up all day, unfortunately, and so my day was just kind of derailed. And so I didn't read any of this on Thursday, and I also didn't read much over the weekend. But yesterday and this morning, I have read more of this, and so now I'm at chapter 21, page 137. And so far, I'm happy to say that I've been thoroughly enjoying this book. I've been having a really good time with it so far, and any worry that I had about not enjoying this because it sounded so different from this author's previous books has gone completely away. It has gone out the window. In this book, even though on paper it sounds very different from Stephanie Garber's previous books, it still very much feels like a Stephanie Garber book. It has her trademark whimsical writing style, and even though it takes place in modern day, it still feels very fantastical. And in ways, it does feel very similar and have similar vibes to her two other YA fantasy series, Once Upon a Broken Heart and the Caraval series. And similarly, our main female character of this one, Holland, she does remind me a little bit of Evangeline, who is the main character in Stephanie Garber's Once Upon a Broken Heart series. Although Holland feels like a less naive, more grown-up version of Evangeline. But like Evangeline, she's very much a dreamer and she believes in magic. And when Holland went to college as an undergrad, she majored in folklore and she continues those studies today as a grad student. And as a folklore student, she took these classes about local legends and urban myths that are taught by this mysterious teacher called the Professor. And these classes are very much shrouded in mystery, and you can only learn about them through word of mouth because they're not even listed on the college website. And then if you end up finding these classes, attending them, and completing the course, then at the end of the semester, the course will magically show up on your transcript. And one of these urban legends that is taught in the class is the legend of the Watchman. And this is pretty much an individual who, if you meet him and ask him what is the time, he will tell you when you will die and the exact time that you will die. And so at the beginning of the book, our main character, Holland, actually ends up stumbling upon the Watchman. And so she ends up getting a call from him, and he ends up telling her that she will die the next day on Halloween at 11:59 p.m. That is, unless she can find this thing called the alchemical heart. And so this begins Holland's heart-pounding journey into a secret magical world that is in Los Angeles. And speaking of the magical world in this book, I'm really enjoying the world building that has been going on in here. So every so often in this book, you get chapters that are the actual folklores that Holland learned about in her class with the professor. And these chapters are told in second-person perspective, so it really feels like you are the one who's taking the class. And these folklores are not only fascinating, but also the way they are placed in the story is very strategically because they are linked to what is going on in the story. And this book actually starts with one of the folklore stories. And I think that is very well done. And let me just read you the last line of this folklore story, which is on page 4. So it says, "You are here because of a story," she says. "Now I'm going to tell you another one." And then right after that, we meet our main character, Holland, and we start her story. And so I thought that was very brilliant how Stephanie Garber started this. And where I'm at in the story right now, I've just started to learn more details about this secret magical world, and it's all very intriguing and I want to know more. And so far, without giving too much away, I've learned that people in this world have magic, and there are different factions that are at war for a certain reason within this world. And one of these people from this world is one of our potential love interests, Gabe. And I'm already super intrigued by his character. He's very mysterious. He comes across definitely as a bad boy character trope, and so it's kind of like, can you trust him? And when he meets Holland, he tells her that her sister January sent him to protect her. Holland's very skeptical about this and doesn't really trust him, but then she sees that he has the same tattoo as her sister, and so she's kind of like, well, maybe he is telling the truth, but she's still kind of unsure. And then not soon after that, we meet another male character that might be another potential love interest, and he also tells Holland the same thing, that he was sent there by her sister to protect her, and he also has the same tattoo, and so now she's just like really confused. And she's like, okay, someone's lying. Who's lying? What's going on here? And so you don't really know who to trust. And so that whole situation going on has been like very fun to read and just keeping me on my toes with trying to figure out what is going on and who these guys are. And then add to that there's a third guy character who is Holland's friend, who also seems like he might have connections to this magical world. And I'm like, is he also another potential love interest? Like, who knows at this point? Maybe. So yeah, you got all that going on too. That is also adding to the intrigue of this book. And then add to that there's also some other mystery elements going on. And you learn early on that Holland goes by a fake last name because she had to change her real last name for some reason. So right away, that caught my attention. I was like, okay, girl, why is your last name fake? Why did you change your name? Tell me more. And then also, every so often, Holland has been getting these like mysterious nosebleeds. And so I'm wondering what is up with that, because it seems she gets them after like some strange things happen. And so I want to know more about that as well. So yeah, those are pretty much all my thoughts at the moment. I am just having a really good time about this book, and it's keeping me on my toes, and I need to read more because I need to know more about what is going on, more about these male characters, and just more about this whole secret magical world. And so I have the day off from work today, so I definitely plan to read more of this. But I'm thinking I might download the audiobook because I do have some cleaning I need to get done today. And also I may try to go on a walk so that I can enjoy the fall leaves a little bit more before they're all on the ground and the trees are bare and sad. And at the moment, there is a tree like right outside my window that is like really pretty right now.
Chapter 21. Holland opened her eyes. Adam was gone. Gabe was back, and the beach house was suddenly too bright.
I'm only like 4 minutes into chapter 21, but they just started talking about how there's a legend about this magical hotel where time works differently in it. And so like 1 hour in the hotel is only 1 minute in real time. And I'm just like, that's so cool. That's so whimsical feeling. And that's so like totally Stephanie Garber. And it reminds me like a lot of like Caraval. Okay, that's it. I'm gonna go back to emptying my dishwasher now. So, it is now many hours later, and between listening to the audiobook and physically reading this, I have made it to page 242, chapter 39. So I have a little over 100 pages left, so I thought I'd do one final check-in before I finish this. So last 100 pages, there have been plot twists, reveals, things that I didn't see coming happening. And so in that way, this is very much reminded me of Caraval, because that book is also very like twisty, turny. And in that one, you also don't really know what's going on, what's going to happen next, or who to trust. And speaking of who to trust, we've gotten more of Adam and Gabe, two of the love interests that are in this book. And so far, I have to say that I'm Team Gabe. I just really like his bad boy persona and how like mysterious he is, and how we don't really have many answers yet about like exactly who he is or exactly what his purpose is. And he definitely reminds me a lot of like a mix of Julian from Caraval and Jax from Once Upon a Broken Heart. And the chemistry and attraction between him and Holland is just so good. See the two of them being drawn to each other but fighting that attraction to each other, and so like that whole dynamic is just so much fun. Wait, that's the ending? So I just finished this, and the way this ended, no. Just no. I did not like the way this ended. It just like ended, and I was like, wait, that's the end? I definitely need more. I need more, because I feel like the ending just left me with more questions than answers. But I'm going to be giving this 4 stars because I really enjoyed my time with it. I feel like the plot twists in this one were really strong. They were excellent. That was one of my favorite parts of this book, was just how twisty and turvy the plot was, and how like things happened that I just did not see coming. There was more stuff that happened towards the very end where I was just like, what is going on? And I also really liked the world building in here. I really liked the development of a secret magical society within Los Angeles. I thought that was really neat to read about and very fascinating. One thing though I wanted more in this book, and kind of the reason why it's getting 4 stars and not 5, is I wanted more of the male characters. Specifically, I wanted more of Gabe. But there's also a couple other male characters I just wanted more of, and I know this book is like only 350 pages, so you can only do so much. I feel like it's definitely more plot focused and character focused, and what we do get of the characters I really liked. Like I really liked Holland as our main female character. I thought she was very well developed, but I really wanted more of Gabe's character, because I feel like we've only scratched the surface of his character, and I feel like I still have so many questions and things I want to know about him. And similarly, like her friend Chance, I thought was also a very fascinating character, and I wanted to know more about him. And he got a little bit more of time near the end of the book, but I feel like I still wanted more. Which, if you get the Target edition, the bonus content at the end is more about Chance, is more stuff about Chance. So if you're interested in knowing a little bit more about his character, then check out the Target edition. And then there's also one other character who I'm not going to go into much detail about because of these spoilers, but they're also a very intriguing male character that, when the story ends, is still mostly shrouded in mystery, and I want to know more about them, because I feel like there's a potential for me to like them just as much as I like Gabe. I feel like out of all the male characters in here, I feel like the one I liked the least was Adam. He just wasn't my favorite character for whatever reason. He just didn't grip me as much as Gabe and Chance and the other male character did. And also in the next book, I hope we get more of Holland's twin sister, January. I want to see more of her. Oh, also, after finishing this book, I now have more of appreciation for this cover, because this cover now means something to me. Whereas before reading this, it did not. So once you read this, you'll appreciate the cover more. But yeah, those are all my thoughts on Alchemy of Secrets. I'm really glad that I ended up picking this up. And if you are afraid to pick this up because it sounds really different from the Caraval Once Upon a Broken Heart series, don't be. Because of this, even though it takes place in modern day Los Angeles, it feels very fantastical, very whimsical. It does in ways feel similar to both Caraval and the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. And if you read this, let me know down below what you thought about it. Who was your favorite male character? Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, bye!